For the first time in nearly 2 decades, there isn't going to be an official Formula 1 game released next year. That may sound kind of scary, but trust me, it's not all bad. Yes, this afternoon, the emergency traction podcast klaxon sounded because we got this breaking news, Tom, that F1 26 isn't going to happen.
I know, right? I'm quite shocked, but after the initial adrenaline rush, it's actually a good thing, I think. So next year will be a DLC pack on top of or available for the existing EA Sports F1 25, and then the series will return. And let me just cite one of the press releases from EA. In 2027, a new game will be released that looks, feels, and plays differently, delivering more gameplay choices. So it sounds like an all-new thing the year after. So it's taken a year pause, but obviously they need the revenue, so there's going to be some DLC.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, thankfully, we thought F1 25 was actually a pretty good Formula 1 game as they go. So I'm quite happy that this is happening during an even year so that we'll still be able to, players who want to play the 2026 content will still have a decent base to go from, in our opinion, of course. And they have said in the press release, yes, F1 27 will return in new and interesting ways, something along those lines, but also retaining some of the stuff that we've seen in the past series that people like. So yes, that's probably marketing jargon that we would expect, but it's good to hear, I think, that they're taking a little bit of time to have a breather and come back, hopefully even stronger. And it's actually something we've kind of been asking for a while now.
You made a good point briefly there, is even and odd numbers. In our opinion, F1 22 and 24 were weak years. The 23 and 25 were stronger years. So the yearly release cycle sometimes leads to these scenarios where even though the consumer might pick it up and go, oh, it's going to be very similar to last year, but better, it's not necessarily been the case in the last half a decade with the Formula 1 games, which are developed by Codemasters Birmingham, the last surviving Codemasters branded studio within the Electronic Arts megacorp. And behind the scenes, actually, each game is technically given about 2 years to be baked because they have 2 teams working simultaneously. But this sounds a complete change of that strategy as well. Although I would say a DLC pack for 2026, which we'll get onto soon, would have to be still a significant undertaking.
Yeah, absolutely. My initial reaction to this news was concern because we've talked in previous Traction podcasts, and obviously we talk all the time about all of these things, that Codemasters has been in a tricky state recently, and especially obviously the Southern studio not closing down but no longer being used for racing game development and rally games specifically. That was worrying signs from Codemasters. So when I first read the headline of this news, it was like, oh no, is this another step towards the end of Codemasters? I mean, of course, it will be the first time since 2010, I believe, or 2009, I believe, that there hasn't been a new Formula 1 game by the Birmingham studio. So that's already quite a big deal.
Yes, you're right. 2010 and then self-corrected to 2009. So there was a Codemasters Formula 1 game in 2009 for Wii, and was it PSP back then, or Vita? PSP, I think. But that was developed by Sumo Digital, I believe. So the Codemasters had the deal, but then 2010 was the first one by the Codemasters studio. Anyway, let's not get bogged down in the years and who developed what. The key thing here as well, I think, is that it was reported a few years ago that the current deal between Formula 1 and Codemasters at the time before EA purchased into 2021 expired or came to an end in 2025, so this year. So through this, they talk here about we're fully committed to the EA Sports F1 franchise, said Lee Mather, who's the lead on the project. Our multi-year plan extends this year's excitement with a 2026 expansion and reimagines the F1 experience for 2027. So we don't know how long, but multi-year means that some sort of agreement has come together. And then EA earnings call statement says, this move comes part of a multi-year strategic investment in the EA Sports F1 franchise, with support from both Formula 1 management and F1 teams. So the future of this series is now secure. We don't know for how long, but it's happening. Big investments have been made, and it means that, at least in the Birmingham studio, Codemasters is continued to be used as a brand name. EA used it in their recent release, Codemasters, they specifically called it that. And so it seems like, even if there might be some changes around in the structure and not releasing another game, that at least Formula 1 related video game developer jobs are secure.
Absolutely, that's something positive at least. I want to move the conversation on to the F1 26 DLC specifically, because although in normal seasonal transitions from one year to the other in Formula 1, things can remain fairly similar, there's actually quite a lot of things that are shifting for 2026 specifically. So there's going to have to be some thought going into this DLC.
Of all the years actually not to do new game, this seems strangely timed. I guess it's not to do with the Formula 1 rules, it's to do with the game development structure and what they're doing to really step it forward. But it's basically all new car rules. On the surface, it might seem slightly small, like the car is going to be slightly different size, but then you have no DRS. You have it won't necessarily be called push to pass, but to break it down, there's going to be a system like that instead. And then you have significant changes to the power units. So the MGUH is removed, but the MGUK will have an increased percentage reliance on when compared with the ICE engine power. So much more of the energy will be from kinetic energy recuperation, and then the deployment of electrical energy will be a much higher percentage of the total power of the car, is my understanding. And there are concerns. I mean, there are always concerns when new rules come out, but ultimately the teams managed to do it. But will the cars be able to sustain the power they need from the electrical systems for the full duration of the race? I mean, spoiler alert, I think they will. There's also a new track with the Madrid street circuit, so 2 Grand Prix in Spain next year. That's a significant undertaking. And there's going to be estimated 2 seconds per lap slower and a 15% reduction in downforce, but I'm sure over time those will change.
Yeah, so there's still a bit of work to do, but not as much as creating a full new game. I mean, obviously, every yearly release in this game doesn't change a huge amount anyway. There's only so much that can be done, but we do often see some sort of adapted or reinvented feature come in, maybe even a brand new feature. So at least with this, yes, there's a track, yes, there's changes to the cars, but these are all things that are normal, and I don't foresee too many issues. Is there anything specific that you want to see from this DLC that maybe we won't expect or we haven't talked about already?
Now, because it's a DLC, I don't think you can expect any major gameplay changes or updates, and it's going to be within Formula 1 25. So a Madrid track will be cool to drive in an official Formula 1 game. The main thing, I think, will be the cars, and are they, in F1 22, when there was a big new rule set with the extra reliance on downforce coming from underneath the car, there was a real critical feedback about the vehicle handling, but that's because they were, in one element of it, why was because they were having to develop a game when hadn't seen any real Formula 1 races to see actually how they behaved on the track, right? And it's going to be a similar scenario here, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, obviously, we don't have all of the information yet for this DLC, how much it's going to cost, for instance. It's just the initial announcements at this stage. But as always, you can keep an eye on the TraxionGG website on a daily basis for all of the latest news. And if you want to keep up with the latest news on our YouTube channel as well, make sure you subscribe, hit that like button if you're enjoying. And of course, we will try and bring you as much coverage of this as we move towards release. Still quite a long way away, Tom. Now, I don't know if you want to have a guess at the cost of this DLC pack. I can't see it being the cheapest DLC ever, just because it's going to be a full season pack. F1 is a big deal, lots of new fans, so it wouldn't surprise me if it's not the cheapest DLC. What do you think?
Am I supposed to disagree to make it more interesting? No, I fully agree. What shall we say? $40, 40 euros, 30 odd pounds, something like this would seem okay for me, and that's a lot for DLC. But if they genuinely put effort in to make the new rule set, and alongside, obviously, you've got liveries, crash helmet designs, you've got a new circuit in there. I don't think it's going to be that affordable. I don't think it's going to be in the £10 range.
No, neither do I, for sure. I've got another prediction game we can play as well, and this is moving away from the F1 26 DLC and towards what we now know is going to be F1 27, a new reimagined game. Will this finally be the opportunity to change the game engine? Because Formula 1 has been using the Ego game engine since 2010. Well, there's been different iterations. I think 2015 was the last major change to the game engine, but in Ego engine in various states has been used throughout. Do you think this is the time? Do you think this is the opportunity where Codemasters will finally move the F1 game? Wait, you're already shaking your head.
I was going to say, absolutely.
Oh, you fooled me.
Yeah, I think it has to be. Or if they still use Ego engine, and when we say game engine, this is like the code base, so lots of code that's sort of refined each year. You're right, the last major change publicly was 2015, but then even last year for F1 25, there were, it looks familiar, doesn't it? Even if technically on paper, it can do 8K on a PS5 Pro, and it can do 120 frames a second, and it can do all these new lighting effects and ray tracing, which are all nice box ticks to make it sound new, but somehow it still looks a bit old sometimes, which is very hard to put a finger on. It's very subjective as well. What are your thoughts? What if they were picking a game engine, what would you choose?
I mean, the obvious suggestion based on EA Sports WRC would be moving to Unreal, but I'm not fully convinced by Unreal Engine as the best platform for a racing game. I think it's clearly a popular choice, so there must be a reason for that. But I tend to find some frustrating issues with Unreal Engine, just with the ghosting effect. I think performance isn't always great. Of course, we've seen recently that it can be well optimized. The likes of Assetto Corsa Rally looks sensational with a well-developed Unreal Engine game. But of course, this will be the first opportunity for Codemasters Birmingham specifically to be utilizing that game engine if they went down that route. So would they bring in people with more experience to make it look good? That's an obvious one. You've also you've suggested Frostbite as an alternative here, Tom. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, that seems to be the EA engine of choice, isn't that what EA Sports FC, Need for Speed, and Battlefield on? So if I was putting my corporate EA hat on, I'd be looking at the economies of scale and going, hang on a minute, why are you using the same tech as every other game that we produce? But that doesn't mean it's going to be the best choice for Formula 1. And I would stay away from Unreal based on the EA Sports WRC experience, even though that was a separate team. For me, it will have to be Frostbite or an Ego like 10.6, like such a huge leap that we can't really recognize. It just cannot really necessarily look very similar to the previous one if you're saying it's going to be such a significant change.
It is true that we did struggle with EA Sports WRC on the Unreal Engine. That game specifically kind of highlighted some of the issues, I guess, with that. So, we're going to have to wait and see. I think there are lots of different things that we could see happen here. I wouldn't be that surprised if it went back to Ego or if it stayed on Ego in a new iteration. But you're right, Frostbite seems like a sensible alternative. But I mean, it's up in the air. At least there's finally an opportunity for them to actually do something and have the time to make a big change. So it wouldn't really massively surprise me either way, but let's hope it's something good. Anything else you want to see from F1 27? We know there's going to be some new, interesting and exciting features, but that's always the case when you're talking about marketing for a future game. Anything specifically you'd like to see?
Well, it's a really tricky one. I think the F1 game is in a tricky spot because you have to appeal to the large fan base. The Formula 1 fan base has grown, significantly in the past, let's say, 10 years, especially since Liberty Media took over. And so there's, on the one hand, from a business case, you'd be looking and going, we need to reach more of these people. There's a massive opportunity there. On the flip side to that, there's growing concern from disenfranchisement, really, from fans of the Formula 1 games who just stopped playing it or moved on as they've grown older because it's not as serious or it doesn't drive like a sim. You have the esports drivers for F1 sim racing competition, but they're the 1% or maybe even smaller fraction of the audience. However, some of them have big content creator audiences that have influence over the gaming fans, and they don't necessarily like what they drive or they don't think it's realistic enough. But then the wider market, I think it's very telling in the EA investor release. It says, with more than a third of fans having entered the sport in the last 4 years, the refreshed experience will expand on long-term players have loved with the franchise, but also celebrate the passion of Formula 1 for new and long-time players. So, to me, I'm reading into this marketing bump. I think it's going to go in a not towards trying to appease the, let's say, hardcore. It might appease, which I would want to see, and you might want to see. It might try and go broader, but then does that leave space for a dedicated F1 simulator?
You're right. I'd love to argue with it, but honestly, you've made a good point. I think we're sometimes in our little YouTube bubble of content creation where we see our favorite drivers, and a lot of them are very good, very experienced, very fast drivers, which is part of why they're a content creator in the first place a lot of the time. And they, of course, will be looking for a different thing than the 90% who maybe just pick this game up for Christmas or who have a soft interest in Formula 1. It's definitely a gateway racing game for many racing fans that can get them into hardcore sim racing. So for me, it's a massive franchise. They've got to take advantage of the size of Formula 1 and make it a very accessible game. So it would not surprise me one bit. Maybe that doesn't come across as well on various YouTube channels who are maybe going to be disappointed with that. But of course, we have to look at this from a wider perspective. So yeah, plenty of interesting things to look into. Most
people who play the Formula 1 game are on a console on a gamepad. That's the fact of the matter. Now, the fact that it drives better with a wheel is an added bonus, and there are esports competitions, and you can turn all the assists off is wonderful, and we all enjoy that. In the sim racing space, but I think I just have to be pragmatic and realistic with the audience that they're aiming for, and that if the Formula 1 game nails that brief in terms of reaching a wider audience and is enjoyable, that only gets more people into our little corner of racing games and sim racing. And don't forget, if you're really into that, the official Ferrari 2025 season Formula 1 car will be in Assetto Corsa Evo as of early December. So if you really want to go the sim route, but also licensed, that could be good.
That is a very, very good point. Let us know your thoughts, of course, on this news down in the comments below, because we want to hear from you. Is F126 as a DLC pack something that excites you, something that concerns you? And what are your thoughts about F127? What would you like to see from the game? Do let us know. Leave a like if you've enjoyed the video. Of course, keep an eye on the Traxion website on a regular basis for all the latest news. And from myself and Tom, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.